Leviticus 1. Then the Lord called Moses and spoke to him from the tabernacle of the testimony, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, and you shall say to them, The man among you who will offer to the Lord a sacrifice from the cattle, that is, an offering of victims of oxen or sheep. If his offering will be a holocaust, as well as from a herd, he shall offer an immaculate male at the door of the tabernacle of the testimony, to make himself pleasing to the Lord. And he shall place his hand on the head of the sacrifice, and so it shall be acceptable and effective in its expiation. And he shall immolate the calf in the sight of the Lord. And the priests, the sons of Aaron, shall offer its blood, pouring it all around the altar, which is before the door of the tabernacle. And having pulled away the skin of the victim, they shall cut up the joints into pieces. And they shall toss fire under the altar, having arranged beforehand a stack of wood. And they shall lay the parts which are cut up in order upon it, namely, the head, and all the things that adjoin to the liver, the intestines and feet having been washed with water. And the priest shall burn them on the altar as a holocaust and as a sweet odor to the Lord. But if the offering is from the flocks, a holocaust either of sheep or goats, he shall offer a male without blemish. And he shall immolate it at the side of the altar which looks out toward the north, in the sight of the Lord. Yet truly, the sons of Aaron shall pour its blood upon the altar all around. And they shall divide the limbs, the head, and everything that adjoins to the liver. And they shall place them on the wood, under which the fire is to be thrown. Yet truly, the intestines and the feet they shall wash with water. And the priest, having offered everything, shall burn it upon the altar as a holocaust and as a most sweet odor to the Lord. But if the oblation of a holocaust to the Lord is of birds, either of turtle doves, or young pigeons, the priest shall offer it at the altar, and twisting back the neck with the head, and also rupturing the place of the wound, he shall make the blood run down over the edge of the altar. Yet truly, the craw of the throat and the feathers he shall cast near the altar at the eastern section, in the place where the ashes are usually poured out. And he shall break its wing joints, but he shall neither cut, nor divide it with metal, and he shall burn it upon the altar, placing fire under the wood. It is a holocaust and an oblation of a most sweet odor to the Lord. Leviticus 2. When a soul will offer an oblation of sacrifice to the Lord, his oblation shall be of fine wheat flour, and he shall pour oil over it, and he shall set down frankincense. And he shall bring it to the sons of Aaron, the priests. One of them shall take a handful of the flour with oil, as well as all the frankincense, and he shall place it as a memorial upon the altar, as a most sweet odor to the Lord. Then what will remain of the sacrifice shall be for Aaron and his sons, the Holy of Holies from the oblations of the Lord. But when you will offer a sacrifice baked in the oven from fine wheat flour, specifically, loaves without leaven, sprinkled with oil, and unleavened wafers, rubbed with oil. If your oblation will be from the frying pan, of flour tempered with oil and without leaven, you shall divide it into little pieces and pour oil over it. But if the sacrifice will be from the oven grating, equally the fine wheat flour shall be sprinkled with oil. When you are offering it to the Lord, you shall deliver it into the hands of the priest. And when he has offered it, he shall take a memorial from the sacrifice and burn it upon the altar as a sweet odor to the Lord. But whatever is left shall be for Aaron and his sons, the Holy of Holies from the oblations of the Lord. Every oblation that is offered to the Lord shall be made without leaven, neither shall any leaven or honey be burned with the sacrifice to the Lord. You shall offer only the first fruits of these along with the gifts. Yet truly, these shall not be placed upon the altar as an odor of sweetness. Whatever sacrifice you will offer, you shall season it with salt, neither shall you take away the salt of the covenant of your God from your sacrifice. In all your oblations, you shall offer salt. But if you will offer a gift of the first fruits of your grain to the Lord, from ears of grain still green, you shall parch it at the fire, and break it open in the manner of meal. And so shall you offer your first fruits to the Lord, pouring oil over it, and imposing frankincense, because it is an oblation of the Lord. From this, the priest shall burn, as a memorial of the gift, a portion of the cracked grain and the oil, as well as all of the frankincense. Leviticus 3. But if his oblation will be a sacrifice of peace offerings, and he wishes to offer it from the oxen, whether male or female, he shall offer what is immaculate, in the sight of the Lord. And he shall place his hand upon the head of his victim, which shall be immolated at the entrance of the tabernacle of the testimony. And the sons of Aaron, the priests, shall pour the blood all around the altar. And they shall offer from the sacrifice of peace offerings, as an oblation to the Lord, the fat which covers the vital organs, and whatever fat is interior. The 2 kidneys with the fat that covers the sides, and the mesh of the liver with the 2 little kidneys. And they shall burn them upon the altar as a holocaust, placing fire under the wood, as an oblation of a most sweet odor to the Lord. Yet truly, if his oblation and the sacrifice of peace offerings will be from the sheep, whether he will offer a male or a female, they shall be immaculate. If he will offer a lamb in the sight of the Lord, he shall place his hand upon the head of the victim, and it shall be immolated at the vestibule of the tabernacle of the testimony. And the sons of Aaron shall pour its blood all around the altar. And they shall offer from a victim of peace offerings, as a sacrifice to the Lord, the fat, and the entire rump, with the kidneys, and the fat that covers the abdomen, and all the vital organs, and both the little kidneys with the fat that is near the sides, and the mesh of the liver with the little kidneys. And the priest shall burn them upon the altar, as fuel for the fire and as an oblation of the Lord. If his oblation will be a goat, and he will offer it to the Lord, he shall place his hand upon its head, and he shall immolate it at the entrance of the tabernacle of the testimony. And the sons of Aaron shall pour its blood all around the altar. And they shall take from it, to feed the Lord's fire, the fat which covers the abdomen, and that which covers all the vital organs. The 2 little kidneys with the mesh that is over them near the sides, and the fat of the liver with the little kidneys. And the priest shall burn them upon the altar, as nourishment for the fire and as a most sweet odor. All the fat shall be for the Lord. By a perpetual law, in your generations and in all of your habitations, neither blood nor fat shall you eat at all. Leviticus 4. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Say to the sons of Israel, the soul which will have sinned through ignorance, and concerning any of the commandments of the Lord that he instructed not to be done, if anything at all has been done. If the priest, who is anointed, will have sinned, causing the people to commit a transgression, he shall offer to the Lord for his sin an immaculate calf. And he shall lead it to the door of the tabernacle of the testimony in the sight of the Lord. And he shall place his hand upon its head, and he shall immolate it to the Lord. Likewise, he shall take from the blood of the calf, carrying it into the tabernacle of the testimony. And having dipped his finger into the blood, he shall sprinkle it 7 times in the sight of the Lord, opposite the veil of the sanctuary. And he shall place some of the same blood over the horns of the altar of most pleasing incense to the Lord, which is in the tabernacle of the testimony. Then he shall pour out the remainder of the blood at the base of the altar of holocaust at the entrance of the tabernacle. And, on behalf of the sin, he shall take the fat of the calf, both that which covers the vital organs and all that is interior, the 2 little kidneys, and the mesh that is on them near the sides, and the fat of the liver with the little kidneys, just as it is taken from the calf of the sacrifice of peace offerings. And he shall burn them upon the altar of holocaust. Yet truly, the skin and all the flesh, with the head and the feet, and the intestines and the dung, and the remainder of the body, he shall carry away, beyond the camp, to the clean place where the ashes are usually poured out. And he shall burn them upon a stack of wood. There, in the place where the ashes have been poured out, they will be burned. But if all the crowd of Israel will have been ignorant, and through inexperience will have done what is contrary to the commandment of the Lord, and afterwards shall understand their sin, they shall offer a calf on behalf of their sin, and they shall lead it to the door of the tabernacle. And the elders of the people shall place their hands upon its head in the sight of the Lord. And when the calf has been immolated in the sight of the Lord, the priest who is anointed shall carry some of its blood into the tabernacle of the testimony. And he shall dip his finger in it, sprinkling it 7 times opposite the veil. And he shall place some of the same blood on the horns of the altar, which is in the presence of the Lord in the tabernacle of the testimony. But the remainder of the blood he shall pour out at the base of the altar of holocaust, which is at the door of the tabernacle of the testimony. And he shall take all its fat and burn it upon the altar, doing so with this calf in the same manner as he did before. And while the priest is praying for them, the Lord will forgive them. But the calf itself he shall carry away, beyond the camp, and he shall also burn it, just as with the previous calf, because it is for the sin of the multitude. If a leader will have sinned, and through ignorance will have done one of the many things which the law of the Lord prohibits, and afterwards he shall understand his sin, he shall offer an immaculate goat from among the goats, as a sacrifice to the Lord. And he shall place his hand upon its head. And when he will have immolated it, in the place where the holocaust is usually slain, in the sight of the Lord, because it is for sin, the priest shall dip his finger in the blood of the victim for sin, touching the horns of the altar of holocaust, and pouring out the remainder at its base. Yet truly, the fat he shall burn upon it, just as is usually done with the victims of peace offerings. And the priest shall pray for him and for his sin, and he shall be released from it. But if a soul from the people of the land will have sinned through ignorance, so as to have done any of those things that the law of the Lord prohibits, and so commit a transgression, and he shall realize his sin, he shall offer an immaculate she-goat. And he shall place his hand upon the head of the victim which is for sin, and he shall immolate it in the place of the holocaust. And the priest shall take some of the blood with his finger, and touching the horns of the altar of holocaust, he shall pour out the remainder at its base. But taking away all the fat, just as it is usually taken away from the victims of peace offerings, he shall burn it upon the altar as a sweet odor to the Lord. And he shall pray for him, and he shall be released from it. But if instead he will offer from the flock a victim for his sin, specifically, an immaculate female sheep, he shall place his hand upon its head, and he shall immolate it in the place where the victims of holocausts are usually slain. And the priest shall take some of its blood with his finger, and touching the horns of the altar of holocaust, he shall pour out the remainder at its base. Likewise, all of the fat shall be taken away, just as the fat of the ram, which is immolated for peace offerings, is usually taken away. And he shall burn it upon the altar as an incense of the Lord. And he shall pray for him and for his sin, and he shall be released from it. Leviticus 5. If a soul will have sinned, and heard the voice of one testifying under oath, and he is a witness because either he has seen it himself, or he is aware of it, if he does not reveal it, he shall carry his iniquity. The soul that will have touched anything unclean, either that which has been killed by a beast, or that which has died on its own, or any other creeping thing, and will have forgotten its uncleanness, he is guilty and has committed a transgression. And if he will have touched anything from the uncleanness of man, according to every kind of impurity by which he may be defiled, and having forgotten it, afterwards realizes it, he shall be guilty of committing a transgression. The soul who swears and offers from his own lips that he would do either evil or good, and who will have bound the same with an oath and with his own words, and, having forgotten it, afterwards understands his transgression. Let him do penance for his sin. And let him offer from the flocks a female lamb or a she-goat, and the priest shall pray for him and for his sin. But if he is not able to offer a beast, let him offer 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons to the Lord, one for sin, and the other for a holocaust. and he shall give them to the priest, who, offering the first for sin, shall twist back its head to the little wings, so that it adheres to the neck and is not entirely broken off. And he shall sprinkle some of its blood at the side of the altar. But whatever will remain, he shall cause it to drip down to the base, because it is for sin. Yet truly, the other he shall burn as a holocaust, just as is usually done. And the priest shall pray for him, and for his sin, and he shall be released from it. But if his hand is unable to offer 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, he shall offer, for his sin, the 10th part of an ephah of fine wheat flour. He shall not put oil in it, nor place upon it any frankincense, because it is for sin. And he shall deliver it to the priest, who shall take a handful of it, and shall burn it upon the altar as a memorial for him who offered it, praying for him and making atonement. Yet truly, the remaining part he himself shall have as a gift. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, If a soul, by mistake, shall have transgressed the ceremonies in those things that are sanctified to the Lord, he shall offer for his offense an immaculate ram from the flocks, such as can be bought for 2 shekels, according to the weight of the sanctuary. And he shall make restitution for the damage that he has brought, and he shall add a 5th part more, delivering it to the priest, who shall pray for him while offering the ram, and he shall be released from it. If a soul will have sinned through ignorance, and will have done one of those things which the law of the Lord prohibits, and, being guilty of sin, understands his iniquity, he shall offer from the flocks an immaculate ram to the priest, according to the measure and estimation of the sin, who shall pray for him, because he did it unknowingly, and he shall be released from it, because by mistake he transgressed against the Lord. Leviticus 6. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, The soul who will have sinned, and, despising the Lord, will have denied to his neighbor the deposit which he had entrusted to his safekeeping, or who will have extorted anything by force, or who will have made a false accusation, or who will have found a lost thing and then also withheld it by swearing falsely, or who will have done any other of the many things by which men usually sin. Being convicted of the offense, he shall restore all that he wanted to obtain by fraud, the whole plus an additional 5th part, to the owner against whom he brought the damage. Then, on behalf of his sin, he shall offer an immaculate ram from the flock, and he shall give it to the priest, according to the estimation and measure of the offense. And he shall pray for him in the sight of the Lord, and he shall be released from any one of those things that he did when he sinned. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Instruct Aaron and his sons, this is the law of the Holocaust. It shall be burned upon the altar, all night until morning. The fire shall be from the same altar. The priest shall be vested with a tunic and the linen undergarments. And he shall take up the ashes of that which the devouring fire has consumed, and, placing them next to the altar, he shall strip off his former vestments, and being clothed with others, he shall carry them beyond the camp, and he shall cause them to be consumed, even to glowing embers, in a very clean place. But the fire on the altar shall burn always, for the priest shall nourish it by placing wood under it each day in the morning. And, laying down the holocaust, he shall burn the fat of the peace offerings upon it. This is the perpetual fire which shall never fail upon the altar. This is the law of the sacrifice and the libations, which the sons of Aaron shall offer in the sight of the Lord, and before the altar. The priest shall take a handful of fine wheat flour, which has been sprinkled with oil, and all the frankincense, which has been placed upon the flour, and he shall burn it upon the altar as a memorial of most sweet odor to the Lord. And the remaining portion of the flour, Aaron shall eat with his sons, without leaven. And he shall eat it in the holy place, in the atrium of the tabernacle. Yet for this reason, it shall not be leavened, because part of it is offered as an incense of the Lord. The Holy of Holies shall it be, just as what is offered on behalf of sin and of transgression. Only the males of the stock of Aaron shall eat it. This shall be an everlasting ordinance in your generations concerning the sacrifices of the Lord. All who will touch these shall be sanctified. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, This is the oblation of Aaron and of his sons, which they must offer to the Lord in the day of their anointing. They shall offer a 10th part of an ephah of fine wheat flour as a perpetual sacrifice, half of it in the morning, and half of it in the evening. It shall be sprinkled with oil and fried in a frying pan. Then it shall be offered hot, as a most sweet odor to the Lord. By the priest who by law succeeds his father. And it shall be entirely burned on the altar. For every sacrifice of the priest shall be consumed by fire, neither shall anyone eat from it. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Say to Aaron and his sons, This is the law of the victim for sin. In the place where the holocaust is offered, it shall be immolated in the sight of the Lord. It is the Holy of Holies. The priest who offers it shall eat it in the holy place, in the atrium of the tabernacle. Whatever will touch its flesh shall be sanctified. If a garment will be sprinkled with its blood, it shall be washed in a holy place. Then the earthen vessel, in which it was soaked, shall be broken. But if the vessel will be of brass, it shall be scoured and washed with water. Every male of priestly descent shall feed on its flesh, because it is the Holy of Holies. For the victim that is slain for sin, whose blood is carried into the tabernacle of the testimony, for expiation in the sanctuary, shall not be eaten, but it shall be consumed by fire. Thank you for watching. If you like the content on this channel, please press subscribe, the like button or comment below. We'd love to get your tips. See you next time.